welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Nicola Paul, and I'm one of the Assistant Directors of Recruitment for the Columbian College of Arts and Sciences at the George Washington University. And today we're going to be telling you more about our American Studies graduate program. And to do this, I'm joined by a faculty member within this department who will introduce themselves in a moment. I'm going to start with a brief introduction to DW and then turn it over to our faculty presenter who will give you an overview of the program. And this will be about a 25 to 30-minute presentation followed by time for questions. So some housekeeping things to note. If you have any questions during this presentation, please feel free to type those in the Q&A box that you should see located at the bottom of your screen on your toolbar, and we will have the Q&A after the presentation. Additionally, please note that this session will be recorded, and so if you would like a copy of the recording, you are free to email us, and I have just put our email address in the chat. And so you're free to email us and request the link to the recording after today's session. Next slide, please. Awesome. Before we get started, I want to give you an overview of our school, the George Washington University, especially if you've never been to our campus before. GW is located in the heart of Washington, D.C., and it's been this way since 1821. We are the largest institution of higher education in the U.S. Capitol with 3 campuses and nearly 14,000 graduate students from over 130 plus countries. So we have a very diverse student population. When I say we are in the heart of Washington, D.C., I really mean it, as we are only a few blocks away from the White House, the IMF, World Bank, and so many more government, nonprofit, and private sector organizations. And so this has been very crucial for many internship opportunities while you're engaging in your studies, as well as career opportunities. Within GW, we have the Columbian College of Arts and Sciences, also known as CCAS or CCAS, which is GW's largest academic unit with over 90 graduate programs. And within CCAS, our programs are supported by nearly 500 full-time faculty members who promote collaboration, critical thinking, and hands-on learning while tackling real-world challenges. And so now, with that overview, our amazing faculty member present here is now going to tell you more about the American Studies graduate program.
Hello, welcome to American Studies. My name is Suleiman Osman. I'm an associate professor here in the Department of American Studies. I'm also the MA advisor, and so I basically run the MA program. And I want to tell you a little bit about American Studies, and then also talk to you about our particular program, our MA program. I think we have a very thriving MA program that's a rich part, an integrated part of our intellectual life here at GW. First, I should just sort of say, well, what is American Studies? Some of you, I'm assuming if you've something that you maybe know what it is, but just in case you don't, American Studies is a department that takes this as object of study, not a particular methodology. So let's say if you have history or English or other traditional departments. We're one of the oldest American Studies department, by the way. It was only going back to the 1930s. So it's really one of the founders of American Studies is here at GW. As opposed to other disciplines which take as their object of study a methodology. So let's say history is you're learning to be a historian. How do you use archives? And what are different approaches to sort of using methodologically studying the past? And you might use that in your graduate studies to give you a breadth of learning about the history of Latin America, a history of colonial America, a history of Western Europe or a particular country. You know, they might emphasize breadth but that particular methodology. Or English, how do you do critical readings of texts? How do you authorial intent, reader reception, those sorts of questions. American Studies is interdisciplinary, and it takes as its object of study America, broadly defined. I mean, it's one of the central questions is what is America? What are the boundaries? And in order to tackle that, it introduces students to a variety of methodologies. You can still be situated in one particular strength. You know, you tend to be more of a historian and you're using things as a pathway towards becoming a historian, but you also do learn how to do film criticism, or you might take a course by an anthropologist who talks about sort of ethnography and more contemporary landscapes or architectural history, or reading the built environment, or the cultural meaning of monuments, or place and space. all these different ways of studying the American studies. And as opposed to other universities or other places where you might have an American Studies committee consisting of faculty from other departments, we are actually a freestanding, independent department, and all of our faculty members are 100% in American Studies. And within American Studies, as you can look at the websites, the bios, we have a rich array of faculty who all offer graduate courses and introduce you to a variety of ways of thinking about the topic, ranging from Jamie Cohen Cole, who does science technology studies, to Gail Wald, whose office is right here, who's a historian, but who also does music history, courses on popular music. I teach courses about urban studies about cities. I use Washington as almost a laboratory for studying um, about American studies. We have rich strengths, which I'll talk about. We have a political scientist. We have a lot of historians, um, from Tom Guglielmo to Melanie McAllister. So there's a range, and they're all fully in American studies and committed to the mission of American studies and very invested in our graduate program and giving a lot of attention to both to our MAs as well as our PhD students. Okay. So that's what American Studies is more broadly. Um, and so let me tell you a little bit about our particular department and the strengths of doing uh, coming here to do your graduate studies in America and getting an MA here in American Studies. Okay. So why study American Studies at GW? Um, as was just mentioned, one is just simply if I can't think of a more exciting place to a locale, a place to do American studies. You're right here, steps away from the White House. I can look out my window, and steps away is the National Mall. If you want to talk about a rich tapestry of symbolism and thinking about national identity and contested spaces and memories in the National Mall, where the Vietnam Memorial is right there. Um, so you're studying American cultural history in the nation's capital. The vast access that was talked about to public institutions and public cultures, if you're interested in alternative alt-ac careers, essentially, but other exciting places from think tanks to the Smithsonian almost being the equivalent of a university when you think about the amount of resources and museums available for you. And then, of course, the Library of Congress, the National Archives. There's no greater trove of archives than here in Washington, D.C. Um, so it's a uniquely exciting location to study culture, history, politics of the United States. Um, and I'll talk about a second how you can actually literally use this as a stepstone for internships and other things. We have top-notch instructors. We have award-winning faculty who win all sorts of awards with their books, like really the highest standard of of intellectual, powerhouses who are on the faculty. They all teach graduate students. They all at some point offer and graduate courses. There's a lot of attention to our graduate students. And then also it's a relatively small department. So there are about 10 faculty members, all who are very committed to American studies. We're really known to be, as opposed to, there's some real powerhouse, yeah, departments that are huge in GW. Let's say political science is, obviously political science at GW. If you're interested, another wonderful thing, imagine a place to study political science. These are enormous departments. GW, American Studies, is really it's a small, really strong department with faculty who are really work closely with their graduate students. Okay. We have So one of our essentially, and I'll talk about this second, our tracks for MAs in when you come to American Studies is using it as a springboard to, if you're interested in pursuing a PhD program. And that's like, it's do some PhD programs, fair or unfair, like sometimes even want people to have already done an MA when they're applying. Um, that's not a requirement this is a separate topic for the applying for the GW PhD. Um, but we do have a very good track record of our graduates getting accepted into other top PhD programs from Brown to someone being accepted at Harvard to being accepted at UNC. So there is this great, we do have a pretty strong record of doing that, of our graduates going on using it as a stepping stone to towards an academic. And it's a very, we take academics very seriously. I mean, there is a serious track. And when you come here, you will be trained to really become, to do PhD level work by the time you're finished. Um, and you'll have be in a nice position to people support your work as you start to apply for other places. There's also, if you're interested in ending here and then looking at other forms of intellectual, rich and stimulating and important work in the public humanities. Our department also has a good record, and you can take courses with Catherine Ott, who offers a course in material culture at Smithsonian. We have a lot of our graduates who work in institutions around Washington, D.C., and it is a good place to use as a stepping stone to be involved in, and it's something our department really cherishes and takes seriously, is commitment to public humanities. And if you think about the location of Washington and what our department does, it makes a lot of sense as a place to use as a stepping stone into those sorts of into that sort of work. If you were to, let's say, go into an MA program and in similar American studies at another place that, really very strong, and I won't give specific names because I'm not here to talk about other places. But I mean, they're great. There are other places that have great PhD programs. If you were to sort MA programs and if you were to say, actually, I'm kind of not interested in pursuing a PhD per se, or working in university. I really am interested in museum work, or I'm actually interested in other forms of public humanities. There might be a either just a complete blank stare, or, oh, that's nice, and look at this interest. No, here at GW, this is a big part of what we do. Um, Gail Wall taught a course last 2 semesters ago on public memory. So I'm thinking about memory. Um, and this is key to our mission and key to where we are in Washington, D.C. Um, and lastly, we have an emphasis, intellectual interest in the United States and the world. Someone like Melanie McAllister does a lot of transnational work. She's kind of a giant in the field. And so we have a lot of, and there is the availability of consortium or taking courses at the Elliott School, or I mean, we'd want you to take as many courses in our department, but as an interdisciplinary program, we do allow you to take other courses. And so we also encourage, you can feel comfortable coming if you're coming from an international background. We have international students who are in our MA program. Um, and this is something that is also in a wide range of academic backgrounds. So you can come and do an MA, you know, essentially, if this is you've been, you've wanted to take American studies, but you were more of you studied philosophy as an undergrad. American studies has a wide tent as an entry point because we are interdisciplinary, and it does make the department richer to have people with different backgrounds and who are also contributing and learning about developing an American studies method. Okay. The coursework is there, so they're 30 credits, so 3 credits is a course. So it's 10 courses. And you have 3 required courses. And one, you'll take, all of the incoming people will take a class called Scope and Methods in American Studies. And that's an introduction to the field, debates about methodology, a mix of classic works and newer works, but basically an overview of the field, an introduction to the central core debates of American studies. And that's a great course, and you sort of develop a big kind of cohort identity as you take this course. And I've taught it before. Gail Wald is teaching it this year. Um, and after that are 2 research. You also then take a research seminar. So we don't have a big master's thesis that you have to write at the end. Instead, we have almost 2 shorter research projects that are done in the spring of each semester of each year. So you take one the spring of your first year and one in the spring of your second year. So there are 3 research seminars. And research seminars, reading seminars, and this is in all the grad school programs that you go to, are ones that are centered around a body of readings that you read each week, and maybe you write one or two papers. A research seminar, in some ways, matches what you actually do when you become a faculty member. In the research center, you're producing your own original research. So you have a topic in mind, you find an archive or a methodology like oral history interviews, and you do a mini research project and produce a paper, article length paper by the end of the semester. And it's a very rich and fun process because you kind of workshop it with the group. And we have two of those research seminars and seven electives that you can take. And these there is like the flexibility to customize so that you could do, I'd encourage you to take as many as you can in American studies because it'll give you a deep ground of the field in American studies, and we already have a lot of breadth within our department offerings. But you do have the flexibility to take a course in, there's somebody I know who's taking a course this semester in the anthropology department next door. Somebody who's taking ones in obviously in the history department, or someone who's also taking one in Asian American literature in the English department. And then there's even the ability to take courses in our consortium. So if you see a really exciting course, the instructor lets you in and you check it with me, you could take a course at Georgetown, or at American, or at some of the other these other universities that are part of our consortium. Um, Generally, the people do take the courses three, 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 so over the 4 semesters, and then the last semester they just take one course. Um, that would be taking it full time. Um, so you do have the ability to take it part time if you want to, and I mean you could, in an extreme case, do one course a semester for 10 semesters, but that would be the minimum you could do to stay enrolled. And there's some pluses or minuses to doing it part-time versus full-time with funding and so those sorts of things. But you can talk to me about that or to the university. Um, but the general model is three, 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 and one. Some people take a course in the summer. There are other options for fulfilling that the coursework. Okay. Um, Now, the outcomes, as I said, tend to be, this is for the MA program. And I'm the MA advisor, and this was an MA informational thing, but I can also briefly talk, if someone's come in and they want to know about the PhD program, I could talk about that as well. Um, so I talked about these three outcomes. There tends to be academia, so placements in top PhD programs and a springboard. And there really is a serious, like we're training you in this department to be scholars. Yet at the same time, as opposed to other departments, other schools, we also have a strong support and for people who are training to be publicly oriented scholars and even practitioners bringing the expertise of an American studies background. And so we have people who've been placed in the top museums in the area, the National Museum of American History, or the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, or the New Museum in New York City, or Dumbarton Oaks, these. And then there are people who work in an array of, DC is also the headquarters for major nonprofit organizations, the Council for Foreign Relations, the Pew Charitable Trust, NPR, public television. And these are all available here. And I can work with you, think about even when you arrive, if that's what you want to do, how do you cultivate or begin to do internships or make this part of your uh, intellectual journey here, um, as you go through our program, okay? Um, so this is for MAs. There are some opportunities for funding, and this was something you should really talk to the university and look at the website here, where they have more about the funding and employment opportunities. If you apply by February 1st, there are you are eligible for what would be a Dean's Award, and that would be offered at the time of admission if you qualify for it. And that would cover approximately 20 to 25% of your tuition. So if you want to apply, it would be good to do that before February 1st. If you're currently GW undergrad, you can get a 10% tuition reduction if you grad to grad by going to also pursue your graduate program at GW. That'd be added to the Dean's Award. Now we do have, and these aren't offered regularly, so we don't have there are for the PhD program, which is separate. I could talk to you about the PhD program if you have questions about that. Um, uh, they the students take together, but they're also separate programs. Um, I see some chat stuff. Okay, so you're sending the links in the chat. Um, uh, the we do have one available, so it's not regularly, although we have 3 or 4 students who are doing it. It's actually 4 students who will be doing it in the spring out of let's say 12 graduate student MA students, where you are able to serve as a teaching assistant for a professor who's teaching a large lecture course. You do discussion sections. It's an interesting experience for you, and you also can get essentially a GTA salary for doing that. And there's also also research assistants where people work as a research assistant for a professor, either here or there's an endowed professor who often has a master's student work from GW as one of their assistants. So those things there are these opportunities that come up, but there are when available. So they're not regularly offered to you when you offer admission. But I do want to say that there are these opportunities that you could look for. We do regularly also offer. We got a very happy MA who graduated from our program, donated something to our endowment to pay for summer grants for MA students. And you apply for those, and they're regularly offered by American Studies. And so these are the cash summer grants. And last summer, students who applied for it received up to $3,000 to conduct research on projects of their interest to develop, one person went to Chris was interested in the X-Men, went to the Chris Claremont archive in New York to look at he's the author of the X-Men in the 80s and 90s, to look at his papers. Somebody used it to try to convert the research, um, just to take the time to convert their research seminar paper to try to get into a publishable article. And so just apply. I want to take this time to basically work on my article, on my research seminar paper. And so you also got $3,000. So there are these other opportunities as well for funding. And so look at this website, which was just put up for other grants and opportunities, which I haven't mentioned, but that the university also offers. Um, let's see here. Um, now, who here, if you could just say in the chat or so, because I, it's a talk about the MA program, but there are people here who want to know about the PhD program. Is that something that people wanted me to talk about, or I could start to take questions?